Hi, this is Stephen, and this is Astro Indicator Update, Excursions into Practical Astrology. And today is Saturday, February 22nd. And as usual, we're going to look at some markets, Dow, gold, silver, Bitcoin, US dollar, and look at what are some key astrology dates coming up for those markets. And then we'll look at the U.S. chart and what I think is an important upcoming Mars transit that's happening in early March. In particular, it's in combination with a very strong Pluto transit that's happening at the same time. I'm going to recommend an article about gold and the potential effect of the coronavirus on the markets and gold. And then briefly, from a request that I had, we'll look at Tulsi Gabbard's astrology transits currently and in a number of months. So first, let's look at the Dow Jones. Again, as an overview, I use a proxy here. I use the ETF DIA. I combine the astrology with standard technical analysis. This is the MACD, RSI, momentum indicators down here. I've drawn in trend lines, just in pretty much the typical conventional fashion. In the past, I was using a different, I think this is a more attractive layout, and so if you want to backtest my astrology, look at my previous videos. You can see the vertical lines are the key astrology dates that are upcoming, which I always talk about, and in my previous videos you'll see these vertical lines drawn in. But I wanted to switch to a black. It would have taken me hours to draw in all the previous ones, and if you're interested in checking things out and testing me, then just look at my other videos. Okay, so we've just had several. We've got the Dow Jones looking like it's turning over on, let's see, it was the February 16th, around the 16th, which was a Sunday, and even I had the 14th. But I noted in my previous video that about a week ago, we were hitting a period where reversals could happen. And this is, as I've said every time, this market is the most manipulated market. However, the astrology is in effect, and as I've said, I combine the astrology with technical analysis, and I look ahead, which is the advantage of astrology, to see what's coming up. And this was a date where I could see a reversal taking place. And since then, this is what's happened. We've traded down to the 50-day moving average. I expect from my experience that we're going to get a bounce here just because of the technicals off the 50-day. However, upcoming, we have what I see is happening is on the 27th, which is a Thursday, we could get a bounce, which is that first line. And then when we look into, let's see, the next line is Sunday, I believe, and Sunday into Monday. There's definitely some negative energy that is going to kick in next weekend and may show up on Sunday in the futures market. So potentially we're going to get a bounce here into Thursday and Friday, and then that Sunday, Monday, the 1st and the 2nd, is potentially that's when the third leg of this downturn could take place. So just something to note on your calendar. This is not a recommendation, not trading advice. I'm just sharing you my research. Sometimes the manipulation overrides everything. So take that into consideration. Okay, here's gold. Gold is definitely broken out here, broke out from this wedge pattern that was taking place over a number of months here. Big boost up. We had a trading channel here, and this past week it has broken out above that as well. Let me shuffle through some papers here, look at my notes. So what's happening in gold this week? Well, just as a review, I was curious a week ago whether this was a very bullish date here, and that turned out to be, I think, on a Sunday. And if the general atmosphere is one that is strong and bullish, then on that futures market it starts to show up, and from that point on, we've been moving higher. We have a similar situation in a week, and this is this last line, or no, it's not the last line out here. It's, I think, right here. From Friday, this next Friday, which is the 28th, and March 1st, which is Sunday, I think this bullish tendency could definitely go higher. When we get into March 6th, which is a Friday, which is this last line right here, then we could get a pullback of some sort. So mark those on your calendar. We have headroom to go higher when you're looking at the MACD and even in the RSI. This breakout was very important. I think this market has got room to run. We may get a pullback in about a couple weeks. Okay, that's just my forecast, something to consider. So let's look at silver. Silver is lagging gold, at least at the moment. Oftentimes it just follows the trading in gold, but we'll look at the astrology here. We had a very strong astrology happening on February 18th. You can see it marked here. It's been the last few weeks I've had it marked. Big green candle, okay? Coming up on this Thursday, which is the 27th, my dates get run together down below, but I'll tell you, the 27th is another strong bullish date. When we get into Monday, the 2nd, we could get a pullback in silver, okay? So I think this market is continuing higher. It's broke out from this downward trending channel. We're hitting some resistance right here, which we have essentially surmounted, and definitely we could go higher, given what's going on fundamentally in the world and so forth. The most strong bullish period for silver is Thursday, Friday, March 6th, which is this very last line out here. So we could get a little pullback in between, but a bounce higher into March 6th. Okay, let's look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin has gone through a very bullish period. And let's see. But we did have also the very first line right here on the 14th, February 14th, was a strong reversal, one of the strongest reversal periods. So it just turned out that a lot of bullish astrology energy got combined with a very strong reversal point. Having said that, we still have some strong energy coming up, which is out here March 4th through the 7th, okay? So what's going to happen in this intermediate period? Well, we do have the 50-day moving average here down, supporting this market, a downward trending MACD, which really hasn't sold off enough. The RSI is getting down into an area where potentially people could start, buying the dip. However, we could come down to this 50-day moving average, over the next week or 10 days. We'll just have to see. But in all of these markets, what is going on worldwide with China and the coronavirus and central banks just doing whatever they can, throwing the kitchen sink at the markets with, printing money. In the long term, people are going to move to safe havens. They've been doing that with the US dollar, they've been doing that with gold, and they're going to be doing that with Bitcoin, in my estimation. So, we can look at the astrology, but we have to combine other technicals and fundamentals as well. And I just mentioned the dollar. Here's the dollar, big rally. As I think part of this was a technical rally up to this point, and then people are getting nervous. When they get nervous, they go to safe havens. It's sort of a knee-jerk reaction. They think the dollar's a safe haven, but when you're flooding the markets with QE, which the Fed isn't claiming as QE, quantitative easing, then sooner or later people wake up and they realize that their money is increasingly being devalued, and we may have hit that point. Let me see what my notes say here. And so what are we, February 11th was very strong. Now the 19th should have created some hesitation in this market, which it sort of did. And then upcoming on Wednesday the 28th, which is this next line, even though it says the 26th, it should be it is the 26th. Wednesday the 26th. This is a reversal date. So in addition, on Monday the 2nd, this is more of typically a bearish energy. So we'll just have to see, but the astrology is suggesting that we've hit a top here. The key technical level is this trend line, okay? If we break back through that trend line, and we may break through, we may back test it to see if we can get above it, but then if that back test fails, we are heading south. So we're very overbought. Looking back at the RSI, we can see at least pullbacks at the minimum happen when we're this overbought. So this should be just, as a matter of almost habit, when we see the dollar drifting lower, usually that bolsters the precious metals, and in my estimation, also Bitcoin. Okay, moving on. Here is the natal chart of the United States, which I had in my last video. I was talking about, we have a Pluto transit. Let's see if I can draw that in really quickly. I think I got this right. Yeah, let's see here now. Oh, darn. Time out. I'm going to interrupt let's get back to this. What happened here? Please excuse me while I figure out what I'm doing here. I need to look at something. I know this is very unprofessional. But so few people actually watch this. Well, forget it. Let's look at this. So anyway, follow my cursor here. This is the transits of the U.S. chart. We have very slow-moving outer planet, Pluto, which usually brings about a crisis of some form. It represents a lot of other things. It could represent the deep state, the power brokers of the world, big money, things of that nature. It also, last week I brought in that it usually brings about a threat of some fashion. And here the whole world is dealing with a potential pandemic, and it's opposite our Mercury, which, again, there's a range of meanings for Mercury, but it deals with the media, communication, transmission of things like a virus, trading, business because of that, and so forth. We are hitting a period where I think our markets are going to be moving into a crisis zone. Now, why I'm bringing this up again is that in a couple weeks, in addition to this Pluto transit, we're having a Mars transit to the U.S. Sun. Here is Mars right here, currently in the sky. It is at 13 degrees Capricorn. Oh, actually, I take that back. On March 6th, it will be at 13 degrees Capricorn. So that is, 2 weeks away. That is taking place right when we have a very exact Pluto transit to Mercury. What could this possibly mean? Well, this could mean definitely some sense of conflict, whether it's militarily in another portion of the world or, I don't like to say it, but it could be some conflict event happening within the U.S. And who knows what could be behind it, whether the media will report on it as objectively as they can, or I'm afraid to bring up the possibility that it could be a staged conflict to create crisis, to create disruption and disorder in our society. We'll just have to see what happens. But this is be on alert. Be on alert during the next couple weeks, because we have two of the most challenging energies in affecting our society on the whole. Let's see. And yes, and I ended up here noting that Jupiter had been opposite our sun. Here's Jupiter. It had been back at 13 degrees opposite our sun. And right now it's sort of in between. We're not getting a benefit from Jupiter, the optimism of Jupiter. And so it is, during this 2-week period, it is really not counterbalancing some of these more negative energies. Okay, let's move on. I thought this was an interesting article, even though it's sort of technically written. I got this off Zero Hedge. You can also find it on goldmoney.com under research, and it's written by Alistair McLeod, who I think is a very smart analyst. And he is just, bringing up this idea that with China having to stimulate their economy and just print money to keep things from just completely collapsing, China has a lot of gold. China and Russia have been buying gold as much as they can over the last 10 years. And this black swan situation with this virus, wherever it's come from or however it was released, is creating the conditions economically where China could even be pressured to back some of their currency, the yuan, with gold, and that would change the complexion of world trade, drastically, and it would be very, a very strong impetus for gold to go higher. It's a very interesting article, kind of long. You need to read it slowly, but he sees that things we're on in his estimation, a collapse of some sort could be imminent. So I do recommend this article. Again, it's at goldmoney.com under the research section, or if you searched Alistair McLeod at Zero Hedge or other places online, you could read it. Now, finally, this is somebody asked me to look at Tulsi Gabbard, her chart again. Now, there's sort of a caveat in things that I say about her, is that I don't know her birth time. And so typically in astrology, when you don't know someone's birth time, you just use noon, which I have up here. And so this is a chart for noon. I mean, it's her birthday. And you can go back and look at my video more in depth on what I've said about Tulsi. So let's see, what was I going to mention here? So right now I have the transits for Tulsi for essentially now. This was February 21st. And so I can't, when you don't know someone's birth time, the position within the wheel is a guess. But the relationship between the planets is going to be, for the most part, the same during that day. So you can look at the transits, not relative to the houses, but just to her natal planetary positions. So right now she has Pluto squaring her Venus. And this is probably challenging for her, for gaining, positive momentum in the polls and getting an audience to really start backing her. However, this could change if she stays in the race. This could change in about a month, because in a month we're going to have Jupiter squaring her Sun. Now, some people are in astrology have this overall, sort of a primarily a negative view of squares. But when it comes to Jupiter, this could be bring about a big boost in her own confidence, in her general appeal to the public, and I see it just as being just generally a positive and a quick, noticeable shift in sentiment towards her when you get into March. So in March, again, this was now, in March, this planet, Jupiter, is going to be moving up to 22 degrees and will be in a 90-degree relationship to her Sun, and then to her Venus, which is even positive as well. So I think I see a shift in her appeal, her general political attractiveness coming up shortly, and there's a lot of things about her platform and positions, particularly about reducing military involvement overseas and cutting the military and so forth, and I personally like. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to have one more chart here of Tulsi, and so when you move into November 20th, some of these outer planets have moved forward, and then from Earth's perspective, they have gone into retrograde, and so, but we see the same arrangement going on. Here we have Jupiter conjunct Pluto in the sky for everybody. It's the transit, but it's an exact square to her Sun. When Jupiter is combined with Pluto, very often that just changes the dynamic, and one's sense of personal power and magnetism and capabilities are strengthened. And so this, generally speaking, I see as a real positive. It's occurring at the election, is my point. And in addition to that, she has, oddly enough, she has Venus by transit. Here's Venus down here, opposite Mercury. And then she has Mercury opposite her natal Venus. So I have Venus opposite Mercury, Mercury opposite Venus. That too is it's on a very major coincidence, but that too suggests, a real peak in her, general appeal, and could be reflected in the polls and could be reflected in the voting of many people. So we'll see what happens. But I would say that increasingly for Tulsi, particularly if she can get through the next month, that there should be an upswing in people recognizing her and seeing, what she could contribute. So let's go on here. I think that's about it for today. It would really help me if I knew what Tulsi Gabbard's birth time was, and I could then look at some other cycles that are related to, one's career ambitions and so forth, but I don't. So anyway, that's kind of the best I can do in a quick little overview. So that's it for today. Again, my name is Stephen. I've been studying astrology for quite a while, applying it to the financial markets for a good long time. I do consultations now and then through Skype. You can contact me at astroindicator@gmail.com. And I do this about every couple weeks. So if you would like to get notified of my next one, just consider subscribing. So anyway, thanks for listening. Bye for now.